If you'll go ahead, just as I read your name, raise your hand. Mark Hassan.
Howdy.
Kathleen Thompson is not here. She's the one not raising her hand. Mindy McClure, Becky St. John, and Jesse Hoffman. Okay, you'll each be given the same amount of time to answer the same questions. Remember, it's perfectly acceptable to not use all of your time, but we will cut you off if you go too long. We'll take turns with who goes first for each question. So, Mr. Hassan, we'll start with you. You have 1 minute to first introduce yourself and then answer this question. What is the one burning issue that prompted you to run for school board?
Good evening. My name is Mark Assad. It's my second time doing this, 2 years in a row. First, I'd like to thank my wife and my family for allowing me to do this again. I'm running for an open seat this year. I learned a lot last year. The reason why I did it last year is one of the same reasons why I'm doing it this year. It's for the children. We have 13,000 children in the district, a little bit more than that. And it's important that we take care of them, make sure that they have a good education, and make sure that we give them the best standards that we can. So I've worked with a lot of the students in the district, both extracurricularly, through my volunteerism in Grapevine and in Colleyville, and through mentoring and teaching them math and science and going into the schools and showing them what it's like to be an engineer. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. And Mindy, same question goes to you. You have 1 minute to first introduce yourself and then answer this question. What is the one burning issue that prompted you to run for school board?
I'm Mindy McClure, and I have been volunteering in our schools for over 18 years. I love this district. I love the kids, I love the teachers, I love our administration, our principals, and I would love to be a part of continuing the good work that we're doing. Over 18 years ago, my oldest son, Wade, he started kindergarten, and I started kindergarten with him. And I was lucky enough to get to volunteer in every kind of capacity you can imagine, mainly in the schools, but also with scouts and soccer and whatnot. My husband is actually at a scout meeting with the youngest. We're always dividing and conquering. He retired over a year ago, and it gave me time to be able to invest myself into our district, and I hope I'll have the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for place 2, Becky St. John. Same question goes to you. You have 1 minute to first introduce yourself and then answer this question. What is the one burning issue that prompted you to run for re-election to the school board?
First of all, I'd like to thank y'all for hosting this. I love this opportunity to come and answer questions. That's a very easy question to answer, and the answer to that is Robin Hood. When I was serving on the Grapevine Planning and Zoning Commission, I was devastated to learn that all of the hard work that we were doing to wisely economically develop Grapevine was going to waste with the school district, that our Robin Hood contribution was wiping out the economic gains that we were making. And so after a bid for the city council, I opted to run for the school district. And I've taken this opportunity to advocate for your local tax dollars coming back here to our students here in GCISD. And that's exactly what I plan to continue to do as your Place 2 trustee. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Jesse Hoffman. You have 1 minute to introduce yourself and answer this question. What is the one burning issue that prompted you to run for election to the school board?
Right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. My name is Jesse Hoffman. I am a longtime Grapevine resident. I grew up here. I came up through our school system, and I've been through all of the Grapevine-Colleyville schools. I'm currently raising my 3 boys here as well, so the school district really means quite a bit to me, and I want to safeguard its future well into the future. That's why I'm running. The most important issue to me is to keep our focus on academics. I think the best way to do that is through a fresh perspective. The most pressing issue that we have holding us back right now is the budget. Our budget is a little bit out of control. It's not because of something that we've done wrong. There are a lot of factors, but we have to be very proactive in dealing with this to try and roll back spending to get our deficit under control. That's how we're going to ensure the strongest future for this district, and it's what's motivating me to run right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mindy McClure will go first for question 2. and you only have 1 minute to respond. I apologize because this question. What are your thoughts on the recent controversy over C-Scope and Common Core? Again, I apologize, but you only have 1 minute.
Well, for one thing, we don't have that in Texas because it's been outlawed. I think, unfortunately, we have other problems here in Texas with over-testing our children and with not funding our schools. We have some things that are starting to look like Common Core, but I am definitely trusting our teachers that we've hired here to continue to educate our children to the best they possibly can, as they've been doing, and I can trust they will continue doing so.
Thank you. Mark, same question. You have 1 minute to tell us your thoughts on the recent controversy over C-Scope and Common Core.
Well, like she said, the use of Common Core standards is prohibited in the state of Texas. Unfortunately, we do have some use in the state that might be done by some districts. In our district, we set our own curriculum, and you might see some handouts that come from teachers that might say Common Core on it. This is just an extra use that I don't think should be used in the classroom, but it's just a use by the teachers, something that we just need to monitor as we go forward. But C-Scope and Common Core should not be used in the schools. It's not something that I'm a proponent of, and we just need to make sure that we don't get caught in a slippery slope of any sort.
Thank you, sir. Jesse Hoffman, you're next.
Right,
1 minute. What are your thoughts on recent controversy over C-Scope and Common Core?
So Common Core and C-Scope, just for those of you who aren't familiar, these are standardized curriculums. Common Core is the one that you will have heard of at the federal level. The C-Scope was essentially the state version of this. It is not being used in GCISD. We have something infinitely better. We have a coordinator who's an expert in developing curriculums. She works directly with our teachers, and we have curriculums because of that that are catered to our students with our students' needs. I think that that is the best way to move forward. I see no reason to change. This is much, much better than either of those other standardized curriculums.
Thank you. And last, Becky St. John, please tell us your thoughts on the recent controversy over C-Scope and Common Core.
Well, I was actually in Austin during that legislative session when Senate Bill 1406 by Senator Dan Patrick, then Senator Dan Patrick, was passed, and it even passed overwhelmingly in the House too. So we don't have it here. But if you take the time to visit when we do textbook adoptions, you'll sometimes see that textbooks are labeled with both TEKS and Common Core. And the reason for that is because Texas is the largest purchaser of textbooks across the country. And so when publishers publish them, they want to make sure that we're going to buy them and that all the other 49 states are going to buy them. And so here in Texas, the TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, that's what we are required to teach kids. The state sets that for us. And so textbook manufacturers make sure those TEKS are in the book. And I'm pleased to say that Texas has more TEKS than there are standards in the Common Core. So our kids are getting a better education.
Thank you. Okay, for our next question, you'll have 2 minutes to answer. Please note that there are 2 questions to address. Jesse Hoffman, you'll go first. GCISD is rumored to be contemplating yet another bond election. The district is already servicing roughly $600 million in debt to educate less than 14,000 students. That's $43,000 of debt per student. The debt service alone accounts for 21% of every GCISD tax dollar, and that doesn't even reduce the principal. Under what circumstances is borrowing money at GCISD acceptable? That's question 1. 2, where should we cap the level of debt per student, if at all? And what specific dollar amount per child is enough to properly educate our children?
Right, and I'm glad you asked. It's an issue near and dear to my heart. I do think that...
A little closer to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do not support a new bond, I think that there are occasions where bonds can be useful to a school district. Obviously, if it's something that's part of a reasoned approach to balancing your budget and keeping debt under control, it can serve that purpose. It often can serve as the bridge that gets you through while you're getting to that goal of balancing your budget. What I'm a proponent of, instead of taking on a new debt to try and take that method of just bridging and kicking it down the road, is getting our debt under control right now so that the spending next year will not be at a deficit, so that we can keep it going at the levels of revenue that we have right now. That way we don't need new bonds, we don't need new taxes. One of the problems we have in our system is that we have to separate everything into two separate budgets. We've got something just for servicing debt, and we have another budget that actually pays for everything that our schools do, essentially. Because we have more in the debt servicing budget than I would argue is needed. We have a surplus right now, and we have the deficit entirely on the other side. We have to find a way of changing that ratio so that we have the excess where we actually need it. It's very difficult to do. It's not something that'll be done in the short term. That's the type of scenario where it's possible that a new debt would enable us to get down the road to that next step where we can actually have a new budget in place that will be lasting, that we don't need new debt in the future in order to keep it going.
Thank you. Becky St. John, we'll go to you now. Same question. Under what circumstances is borrowing more money at GCISD acceptable? Where should we cap the level of debt per student, if at all? And what specific dollar amount per child is enough to properly educate our children? You have 2 minutes.
And 2 minutes is not going to be enough. So, first of all, I want to let y'all know that my husband and I are advocates of Dave Ramsey. So we don't like debt personally. That being said, a school district is a little different than running your household budget as much as you would like to make the same comparison. So for example, this $600 million in debt, that includes both the principal of $345 million and the interest if we took the entire term to pay off of $272 million. Now, Dave Ramsey says pay things off early. Dave Ramsey says get a lower interest rate, and that's exactly what we did at our last school board meeting. So I think that our level of debt is not great, but Robin Hood forces us to do this. We have sent over $500 million to the state, but we have $345 billion in debt. You do the math on that. The reason we have a deficit budget is because of the budget cuts in 2011. There was only a slight restoration to GCISD in the 2013 legislative session, and I was in Austin both times fighting for you, for your tax dollars to stay here. So, acceptable circumstances, people, y'all do this with your own homes. The roof can't leak. The buses have to run, your car has to run. We have to provide those things. If we use the M&O side of our budget where we pay teachers, 25 cents of that dollar is going to the state. But our INS budget, 100% of that money stays here for your kids. And so those are why debt is a tool that we unfortunately are forced to use because of Robin Hood. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to place one, Mindy McClure. Same question. Under what circumstances is borrowing more money acceptable? Where should we cap the level of debt per student, if at all? And what specific dollar amount per child is enough to properly educate our children?
Well, I'm going to follow up on what Becky said because she hit the nail on the head here. We have been incredibly fiscally responsible. Our financial department has won, I want to get it right, 2 superior achievements every year since the school's FIRST award was done, and that's the Financial Integrity Reporting System of Texas. And that actually is telling us that we're putting our money into instruction. We are using it wisely. We also have been the recipients of 2 of the Gold Leadership Circle Awards, and our purchasing department won an award recently. So those are the facts. I mean, we really have done all we can given the situation that we're in, and I'm all for not taking a risk when it comes to educating my children. Ben Franklin said that the best investment that you can make that will earn the most interest is educating your kids. I'm sure I butchered his exact words, but forgive me. We're doing the right thing. We have a dedicated professional staff in place that we should just be thankful are there for us. Robin Ryan, his people, they are working so hard to do the right things for our kids, and I am so appreciative of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mark, same question.
Well, it depends on the circumstance of the district. So right now, like you said, we have $600 million in debt. And unless you have a large capital expenditure where you're going to have a need to expand, which we don't, right now we have a reduction in our student body as a whole, then you might want to consider additional facilities. But right now we need to consider reducing our current deficit obligation, which is $600 million or more. And like you said, so it's over $43,000, $45,000 per student. This is not ideal for any of our students or any of our families. We need to get a control of our financials as a whole. We're in a $6 million deficit this year, and we need to find a way to address it. I concur with what pretty much all three of them said. I mean, they've done their homework. But what it takes is somebody that's been in business and it's somebody that knows how to read the financials and make sure that they know what they're reading. The district did do a good job this year. They paid down the debt when they can. But the difference between a home loan and bonds is you have that obligation period. You cannot pay down a bond early and reduce your interest. What you're obligated to pay is what you're obligated to pay. And that's the difference between knowing between a simple interest loan, which is a home loan, and knowing what bonds are about. And that's why you need to have somebody that's on this board that can read the financials appropriately and answer those questions when they're sitting in that seat. And that's what I'm here for.
Thank you. Stay standing. Come on, everybody. Lightning round. Everybody up. Yay. In the past, okay, again, these are going to be yes or no, so we're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. In the past, GCISD has used task forces made up of parents and chosen by school administration to help create solutions to bigger problems, such as last spring when cheating was an issue at the high school. Yes or no question. Do you believe those task force meetings should be open for other parents to observe? In other words, open to the public or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeses all around. Okay, second question. Online education is the way of the future, and there are many various opportunities to participate. Unfortunately, GCISD's programs has been losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, and enrollment is falling short of projections. Should we allow this program to continue for the sake of the 18 or so students enrolled? Yes or no?
No.
I'd have to check the number of enrollment, and I'll get back to you on that one.
Sorry, it is a tough question. I don't know if those stats are correct, but any program that's losing money and doesn't look like it's going to be right side up anytime soon needs to go.
For argument's sake, let's say that the numbers are correct, okay?
Did you say
no.
18?
18.
That's not even close. I can't answer that
What did they say? Can we strike that? What did?
Should we allow this program to continue for the sake of
We'll
the
challenge that
18?
question.
Okay, that's,
It's fair.
I accept the answer. Thank you. One common parent complaint is the quality of food in our schools. Some schools are hiring chefs and finding they can save money while improving school meals and increasing fruit and vegetable consumption. Would you support such a program?
Repeat the question one more time.
One common parent complaint is the quality of food in our schools. Some schools are hiring chefs and are finding they can save money while improving school meals and increasing fruit and vegetable consumption. Assuming that this is correct, would you support such a
I'm
program?
going to say challenge. And yes.
I believe the question doesn't mean GCISD schools are doing that. Other schools are, and yes, Natalie, I would support that.
I would say yes, assuming everything you stated is correct. We'll just go
Thank
with
you.
that.
Thank you.
I would support that full-heartedly.
I think it's safe to say if it costed more money, there would be little disagreement.
Right.
Okay.
Right, there it is, that's the one.
There was an opportunity to input on these questions for several weeks. Did you participate in that, sir? Thank you. Okay. Last question. Do you support school vouchers? Yes or no?
No, and I testified to that last week.
It's a yes or no question. Thank you.
No.
No.
I have no control over the school vouchers, but I do think that if they pass, we could make this a destination district that benefits from that. We could draw those vouchers to our district.
Is that a yes?
I'm not voting for school vouchers. I'm telling you how I would deal with them if we had school vouchers.
You do not support school vouchers.
Correct.
Thank you. Our final question for the GCISD candidates deals with the controversy over altering the school feeder patterns. What is your specific position on feeder pattern changes? Y'all can sit down. We're going to do this one at a time. Sorry. We'll give you each a minute to respond. Mark, would you go first?
How many minutes do I got? I got an hour?
I'll give you a minute.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the Feeder Pattern Task Force for doing the hard work that they did. I think it's hard to just answer opposed or for. Right now, I feel like the process was a poorly managed process. I think there's some key questions that need to be answered. We need to make sure we have statistical data that is important to know what's going on. I support neighborhood schools. I support parents and families and empty nesters buying their house for where they're located, specifically for high schools and elementary schools. I think you have to look at it from what's the need. If the need is that there's overcrowding at a school and you can address that issue with that, then yes, you can create a pure feeder with making sure that you keep the high schools, people going to their high schools and people going to their local schools if it's possible. But if there's an overcrowding issue, I think it needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Mindy, you're next. What is your specific position on feeder pattern changes? You have 1 minute to respond.
Well, in regards to our district, I really can't speak yes or no without seeing an actual plan. In general, yes, I do think when you have vertical alignment, there are a lot of positives from that, but I would have to see what that would look like here in GCISD before I could say whether or not that's a good thing for our district or it's a negative thing for our district. And listen, you know what if it's going to affect my kids or not, I have to look beyond that because this is about every single one of these kids, the big picture, not just my little world. I've had 3 very different children in this district. I've served in a lot of different areas, and I would bring a unique viewpoint to the board should I be elected. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jesse?
So, no, I'm not a proponent of any of the plans or any of the proposals for the feeder changes. I agree with Mark that people purchased their houses. It was a very, very tough decision, the biggest investment they ever made, and they did so knowing which schools their children were going to go to. So there are reasons that has to be shaken up from time to time, but I haven't heard any such reasons that exist right now. Part of the problem is that it has been difficult to get information on this, and there's information available on the website for GCISD, and it's not like anybody's trying to hide this. But transparency is something that needs to be improved in the future, just to the extent that the community needs to have the resources to feel involved in that process so that nothing is happening quickly, so that they will be informed and they understand that nothing is going to happen quickly. That makes the community feel like they've had input on the process and an effect on where their children are going to go to school. Because like I said, it was such a big decision to buy their house. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, as we close the questions for the... I'm so sorry. I am so sorry.
That didn't look loaded at all, I know.
Becky,
can you
I'm
repeat
so
the
sorry.
question? That's okay.
Sure, I'd
Can you
be happy
please
to.
repeat the question?
What is your specific position on feeder pattern changes? You have 1 minute.
Okay. And like Mark said, we could take an hour. I want to emphasize that the feeder pattern task force was a conversation. There was never a proposal or a plan brought before the board. And in fact, the task force said, "Ugh, we can't come up with one." If it was going to be easy, it would have bubbled up immediately, and it's not. I think that you can't look at the dirt that's being turned down by the super target and not know that we're going to have to do something. And I don't know what that something is. But I do agree that there are ways that we can improve the process. For example, I serve on the Grapevine Parks and Rec Board as the GCSD liaison. That was an appointed position. They said, send us somebody. They sent me, and I'm on that board. At the same time, when I served on the Planning and Zoning Commission, that involved an application process and an interview. And so when we do things of large magnitude, I think using some other systems as a guide would be more beneficial to our parents and our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I apologize. As we close our questions for the GCISD candidates, we want to give each of you the opportunity to provide closing statements. You may respond to or expand upon anything covered here tonight, or bring up anything new that you feel is relevant. You'll each have a minute. And we'll do this, Becky, Jesse, Mindy, and then Mark. So Becky, we'll start with you.
Thank y'all so much for coming. It's a weeknight. I know everybody's busy. Thank you for sticking around. It's 8 o'clock. It's close to my kids' bedtime. My family has a history of service. We've lived here in Grapevine, in the Grapevine area for over 20 years. My husband and I have been married for 22 years, and we're raising our 3 kids here as well. We're so blessed to have excellent schools and the hometown communities that we have here. I meet a lot of board members from across the state. It's not like this everywhere. And so I'm asking you to support me in my bid for my continuation of dedicated service to our community and my passion for the education of all 13,000 of our kids. I would really appreciate your vote on May 9th, and thank you so much for the opportunity to serve both our kids, our staff, our parents, and our taxpayers.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you also for all being out here. The primary reason that I am running for the board, and the reason I think that I would be a good candidate on the board, is because I can bring a fresh perspective to the board. We have 3-year terms for our board members. Becky has been around for a couple of those terms. She's trying to extend it into her 9th year by the end of a 3rd term. I think that when you have somebody in place that long, what happens is they can lose sight of the forest. They're just watching all the trees. And I think that's what we have seen more recently with things like the feeder changes, where the board is making an honest effort to be very transparent and to get information to the public. But the community didn't feel that way. You need somebody from the community to come onto the board from time to time to avoid that very problem. That's what my fresh perspective will bring. I think I can do the same thing with our budgets, and I think that all of us agree the focus will need to stay on academics, and I am very dedicated to keeping it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for giving us this opportunity tonight. You know, like I said, I've been involved in these schools for over 18 years. I've got still 2 of them in there, a 7th and a 9th grader, and this district means the world to me. These kids mean the world to me. I want this to be a really positive campaign because there's been some negativity in our community, and we owe our kids better than that. Our board is really trying to follow this LEAD 2021, and our district is, and that's great. We need a division plan, and I don't want to lambast people for having a conversation. I went to law school, and I think words are important, and conversation is important, and I want to have a district that's not afraid to ask a tough question now and then. Thanks.
Thank you very much to the Northeast Tea Party. Thank you for taking the time to come out tonight. I know it's taken away from your families. Some things I didn't mention. I have 2 kids in the district, one at Colleyville Middle and one at CTMS. And it's important to make sure that we're taking care of all 13,000 kids, just like Becky said. And it's important to have people that are on there on the board that are fiscally minded, that are business owners. I have a business in Colleyville. I live in Grapevine. And you've got to have people that are on there that are passionate about education and making sure that we're providing the highest standards that we can, that we are taking care of all the needs of every student, whether there are special needs, whether they have learning differences like dyslexia, and getting that out. I have a nephew that has dyslexia, so it's passionate to me as well, and he is in the district at O.C. Taylor. So thank you very much. Consider voting me for place 1, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of the candidates. Okay, at this point, if you guys have some questions, officially, we're going to go ahead and close it. But we'll do, if you guys would like to hang around, sir, if you have a question you'd like to come up and ask, now's the time. No question. Okay. Does anyone have any further questions? And if people, I know it's 8 o'clock and there's probably TV shows and stuff, so if you have to go, don't feel bad.
Thank you. My name is Carl Meek. My son graduated from GD ISD, and he's currently a senior at Milwaukee School of Engineering. So what's close to our heart is, I'm presenting this question to Mr. Assad because I inferred that you have a engineering or technical background. Am I correct?
Yes.
So my question has to do with STEM education. I heard a lot tonight about fiscal responsibility, but I'm concerned that being concerned about fiscal matters might take away from the education needs of our children. And so I'm really interested in your answer or your concern about STEM education. Is it effective, what we have at GCISD, and will continue under your leadership on the board?
I'm glad you asked that question. One of the things I didn't mention was that I was the Fort Worth chapter president for the American Society of Civil Engineers and the Fort Worth chapter president for the Texas Society of Professional Engineers. The Texas Society of Professional Engineers and the American Society of Civil Engineers both work collectively in creating the STEM program with a bunch of other engineering groups. After I served on those two boards, I went on to the state board for the American Society of Civil Engineers, where I served as a VP Education. And part of that was working to develop the STEM program at the state level and push it down to the ISDs. I'm a big proponent of STEM. I'm very happy to see that it's at Cannon, and now it's moving on to the middle schools. I think that we need to have it in more of the elementary schools if it's possible. I'd love to see it at Bransford or O.C. Taylor, one of the smaller schools, to help build the enrollment at those schools where we have overcrowding at some of these other schools. I've gone into Cannon 2 or 3 times this year to review the STEM program. Teachers have invited me in to look at the engineering program. If you haven't done it, you need to go see what those kids are doing, because it is just amazing. Listening to them talk about engineering really fills my heart, because they almost talk in engineering terms like I talk to my kids. Now, if you go and talk to a kid and ask them what concrete is, they're not going to say cement. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to respond to this, Tim?
Yeah, setting up the STEM Academy has just been amazing. Part of it is the staff. Tono Blizzard over there is just fabulous with the kids. I love, though, that this is a perfect example of what does our bond money go for. It goes for putting technology in the classroom, and not just at Cannon and at GMS, but at all of our campuses. It also went to renovate the Career and Technology wing at Grapevine High School that's open to all of our students. And so when we start talking about what bond money can do and not letting programs slip by the wayside because of fiscal management, I have to really compliment our entire board. We have socked money away so that we can do special projects like a university prep, and so that we are prepared for a rainy day when the legislature does cut our funds, and so that we can continue to offer the programs that parents desire and that employers are going to need globally for our kids, and do it in a fiscally sound manner by having our emergency fund, so to speak, beefed up to prepare our kids.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
You know, that bond, that last one, came in under budget and on time, and I've built a house, and boy, I wish I could say the same thing. I have this 2010 graduate over here, and it has been my delight coming through with my second generation of children to see these programs like STEM, dual language, Aspire, which in and of itself is becoming a destination school. We've had people move into GCISD specifically for that school, and it's only just beginning. Another one that I think is such a game changer is our collegiate part. I mean, you can have kids graduate high school with their associates and do it for free. And to me, that's a game changer, and that's what we're all about here.
I'll address it too. I just want to reassure you, I'm definitely not putting successful academic programs on the chopping block, and that's what I mean when I say that our focus needs to be on the academics. Those are the kinds of programs that we need to save by being more fiscally responsible in the future, because those are the kind of programs that will suffer when we run out of money to even service the debt that we already have. So I'm a big proponent of keeping them around. I think they've been fantastic. I want to address the iUniversity real quickly because I think it might have gotten buried earlier in this in this event. iUniversity, the concept is to bring students into our registrar so that we can collect state money and funds based on the students who are enrolled in that program without actually having the expense of putting those students into a brick and mortar classroom. So if it works conceptually, this is something that we could actually not just pay for the program with, but bring additional funds into the school district. So the big question is just going to be, does that work? And I just wanted to clarify that. I think that it dovetailed pretty well into the question.
Thank you very much. Audience, if you have any more questions, hold on for just a second. Let me take care of a little bit of business here. I want to remind everyone that the early voting dates are April 27th through May 5th, and Election Day is May 9th. You are all invited to the Northeast Tarrant Tea Party meeting, which will be held on April 13th at 6:30 p.m. in Hurst at the Brookside Center. Our speaker will be from the Texas Public Policy Foundation, a gentleman named Mario Loyola. I also have a thing called, this is addressed to all the candidates that are, if there's any left from earlier also. Northeast Tarrant Tea Party has a thing called a taxpayer protection pledge, and I'm going to read it to you. You're all invited to sign it. This is not a big deal. You don't have to answer any questions. I have it here, okay? And what it says is, and then they put their name in here, pledge to the taxpayers of your city that I will oppose and vote against any and all efforts to increase taxes and debt, okay? We don't expect anyone, we're not forcing anybody to sign anything, we're not trying to play gotcha, but if you want to sign this, it looks good on our website when we've got your name on one of these things, okay?
I personally think that the only pledge you should take is a pledge that you will not take any pledges and that you will look at each situation on its own and not be hemmed in just like they are in D.C. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir. If you want to repeat that on the mic, you're welcome to come up if they didn't hear you over there too. Okay. Okay. I don't have any problem, sir. If anyone, again, I did not write these questions, okay? If anyone else has any questions, you're invited to come up and ask.
I would like to know your stance on that, the hotel in Colleyville that there were many, many meetings about, and a lot of people from Euless, Grapevine, and Colleyville were against it and many for it. what was your stance on it, and what stance will you take to reassure the parents of the children going to Colleyville Heritage High School, to just reassure the parents? What will you do? What will you say? What is your stance?
I'm happy to answer that right off the bat. I served on a planning and zoning commission, so I fully understand the difference between a school board and a city. There is absolutely nothing that the school district can do in terms of zoning laws in the city of Colleyville. But to your question about the safety of the kids, I saw that on the plan the hotel was going to be required to build a masonry fence. I think that's extremely important. The hotel will also not have any windows facing towards the school, which is also extremely important. And finally, I mean, I was at Walk for Water, a week or two ago, and the drum line was leading us, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and I mean, that's going to happen because our band is going to practice at dark 30 starting August 1st when UIL says fire up the drums and the trumpets and the tubas and let's go. So I think that your question is best directed towards the city council because we don't have any say-so over that as the school district. Thank you.
Right, so for those of you who don't live right next to me and you might not be familiar with this question, the hotel has been built or is being built right next to one of the high schools, next to Colleyville Heritage. So there are parents who are obviously concerned about having a hotel that close to the high school. This is something where, as you just heard, the school board isn't in control of this. At best, they can hope for a better relationship with city council. I wish city council had come and involved the school board and at least requested their opinion on it. It's something that I think we can improve just by trying to be more involved with the city council when there's something that's on the school board's radar that might not have registered to city council. We can bring that opinion to them, and that's something that I'd like to be more proactive about in the future.
I don't have much to add. They did also include security cameras, so it will be a secure area. They're doing all that they can.
As a business owner in Colleyville, and especially as an engineer, I've been following that since it was at P&Z. So it's good to have somebody that's on the board that follows both P&Z agendas on a regular basis. Like they said, you really can't do anything from the school board stance other than go and talk to city council members, you know, like Chuck and Mike and Carol, and Jody was here. And make sure that they hear what's going on. Just they're going to listen because that's what they're there for. And they put up the security fence and they added the cameras and made sure that the windows aren't there. And like you said, they've got the drums and the band that's going to be there. And I think it's at 6:30 in the morning that they're propping up for. So I'm not, you know, warn all your relatives that will be staying there. That's all I can say. But the only concern that I would have from a school board standpoint is making sure that they're not utilizing that parking lot for any overflow parking at all. It needs to be monitored, and it shouldn't come out of the expense of the district. It shouldn't come out of the expense of the city. It should come out of the expense of the hotel operator. And that's all I'd have to say.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you for your being candid with us. And thank all of you folks for coming along. Are there any more questions you want to get to? Okay, we're going to call it a night. Thank you again for coming.